Good morning, everyone. For teleSUR, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin in Colombia, where the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia have released Army General Rubén Darío Alzate and two others detained with him 2 weeks ago. The general, an attorney, and another military officer were detained by the FARC after being found in the rebel-held territory in civilian clothing without military guards. Upon the general's release, the FARC insisted on calling for a ceasefire in the country. President Juan Manuel Santos rejected the idea. He has consistently refused rebel calls for a truce since peace negotiations began in 2012. Following the general's release, President Santos reconvened the peace talks between the FARC and the government. The president had put the negotiations on hold after General Darío Alzate was detained. Colombia's chief negotiator confirms that the state negotiating team will travel to Havana, Cuba later today to continue talks with the FARC. The two sides have been involved in peace negotiations in Cuba since November 2012. They hope to put an end to the 50 years of civil war that has left over 220,000 dead. Uruguayans have become the latest in Latin America to re-elect a leftist progressive president. Tabaré Vázquez from the Broad Front Party won the presidential runoff election Sunday with 56.6% of the vote. He will replace outgoing President José Mujica in January. Vázquez previously served as president from 2005 to 2010, meaning this will be his second term in power. The results will allow the ruling party to continue with a number of reforms, including the legalization and sale of marijuana. His opponent, Luis Lacalle from the right-wing National Party, conceded his defeat. Protests in Mexico have not ceased since the abduction of 43 students from training to become royal teachers. Many agree the students disappeared at the hands of local police authorities. Massive protests are planned for today in Mexico City and across the country. Today marks President Enrique Peña Nieto's second year in office. Yesterday, Argentine founder and leader of the human rights group Grandmothers of Plaza de Mayo, Estela de Carlotto, met in Mexico City with parents of the missing Ayotzinapa students to express her support. Last week, authorities confirmed that 31 other students were also abducted in Guerrero a few months before the Ayotzinapa students. Also in Mexico this weekend, 5 more bodies have been found in the state of Guerrero. It appears that those found were murdered. Last week, 11 mutilated and burnt bodies were also found in the state along a highway. The 5 bodies were found beheaded and burnt in a van near the community of Chilapa. The van in which the bodies were found was not far from where the 43 missing students from Ayotzinapa are feared to have been killed by drug gangs. Authorities say there is probably no connection with the 2 incidents. In Peru today, leaders from all over the world will gather in Lima for the United Nations Climate Change Conference. Officials are expected to reach a new deal to limit rising greenhouse gas emissions and sign a new treaty ahead of next year's summit in Paris. The treaty is expected to take effect in the year 2020. Representatives from nearly 200 countries will debate ways to control climate change. To the United States, protests demanding justice for Michael Brown's family continued Sunday across the country. Demonstrators temporarily shut down part of the busy Interstate 395 that runs through Washington, D.C. In the National Football League, some players for the St. Louis Rams entered the stadium with their hands raised in a show of solidarity with Michael Brown. Supporters from across the country gathered in Ferguson and began a 120-mile march Saturday to the state capitol in Jefferson City to continue to draw attention to racism in the United States. The white police officer who shot and killed Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, has announced his resignation. Darren Wilson says he fears for his own safety and that of his fellow officers. It comes after a grand jury decided not to indict Wilson for the fatal August 9th shooting. The mayor of Ferguson, James Knowles, says that Wilson will not receive any severance deal or any extension of benefits. Knowles also outlined new incentives to bring more African Americans into the city's police force.
That we can start to bring the community together to bring a more...
U.S. President Barack Obama will meet later today with cabinet members and civil rights leaders following the events in Ferguson. The leaders are expected to discuss a review Obama ordered of federal programs that provide equipment to local law enforcement agencies. The president will also meet with elected officials, civil rights leaders, and law enforcement officials from around the country to discuss how communities and police can work together to build trust and strengthen neighborhoods in the country. This week, the country of Jordan is expected to formally present the United Nations Security Council with a draft resolution for the creation of a Palestinian state. The measure has already been agreed to by the Arab League of Foreign Ministers in Cairo on Saturday. It comes at a time when there is increasing momentum in the European Union to recognize Palestinian statehood. It also comes after Hamas announces that the Palestinian Unity Government came to agreements with the rival group Fatah. Fatah leaders, though, have denied that there was a 6-month limit to that agreement. To sports now. The Cuban delegation stood out in rowing, boxing, track and field, and badminton over the weekend to take first place in the 22nd edition of the Central American and Caribbean Games that ended this Sunday. Cuba took home 123 gold medals, 66 silver, and 65 bronze for a total of 254 medals. Mexico took second place with 115 gold, 106 silver, 111 bronze. Colombia ended in third place with 70 gold, 75 silver, 78 bronze, and 223 in total. And Venezuela achieved fourth place with 56 gold, 79 silver, 110 bronze for a total of 245 medals. We have plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For teleSUR English, I'm Cody Weddle. Hope you have a great Monday and a great week.